listening to the Digitally Irresistible podcast, where we cover the optimization of digital technologies and irresistible people. Brought to you by iCore. Each episode features someone who sheds a little more light on the ins and outs of delivering a great employee and customer experience that has a measurable impact on the business. And now, here's today's guest. Welcome to another episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast. I'm your host, Bernie Borges. Today's guest is Joe Buggy. Welcome, Joe.
Hi, Bernie. How are you? I'm really excited to be here today, so thanks for having me.
Oh, well, I'm doing great. I'm excited to have you, Joe. Looking forward to our conversation. I'd like to introduce you before we get started. Joe, you are an innovative executive leader with expertise in operations, business development, and finance. You have extensive experience in the BPO industry, where you have held executive roles and demonstrated expertise in trust and safety and content management. You excel in leading fast-paced, customer-focused organizations, utilizing proven leadership, creative problem-solving, and communication skills to accelerate growth and bottom-line performance. You are adept at developing and implementing business strategies to maximize the potential of the organization. And Joe, in this episode, let's unpack data annotation and labeling. What is it, why it's important, and who needs it? But first, Joe, we have a tradition here on the Digitally Irresistible podcast. Let's begin with your backstory. Tell us your backstory.
Oh, goodness. Well, I grew up an Air Force brat. We probably moved every 90 days or so until I was about 4 years old. Irish Italian parents, Irish dad, Italian mom. That gives me both the temper, the bad temper, and the ability to forgive, I suppose. I would say in terms of background from an industry standpoint, I'm a guy that loves the details. I can geek out on almost anything, and it's benefited me in my career. My career's been a series of roles that I just break down processes and build them back to meet somebody's specific goals, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that. And I've had the honor of working for some of the smartest and most driven leaders in the industry. So it's helped me learn and I hope provide some benefit to the organizations that I've helped.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, one of my favorite acronyms is ATD, which stands for attention to detail. So it sounds like maybe we're cut from the same cloth on the detail thing. So thanks for sharing that part of your story.
Absolutely.
So, Joe, before we get into and dive into data annotation and labeling, let's give it some context. Let's first talk about content management. What is it and why is it important to brands?
Well, if you imagine today, content management is all about how you are portraying your brand. It's how you're found in digital media. It is everything about your product and how the consumer or a business might find and see and understand what it is you have to offer. It's different levels of content, how are images used and text used and video used, and organizing that in a way that's appropriate for the audience and targeted to what your ultimate goals are. It's in every avenue of how someone is going to find your brand, whether that's on the internet, whether it's in a face-to-face meeting, whether it's in a podcast like you and I are doing today. And if you think about managing that content, it is a huge investment and an important role and goal of an organization to make sure you're concise, that you are appropriate, and that you're putting everything in the best light possible for your customers.
And I would imagine it's something that every brand and every industry cares about. So thank you for that context. So let's come down a little bit closer to sea level now. So that was kind of 10,000 feet up. Um, Data annotation and labeling. Let's talk about what that is, what is its purpose, and why is it important?
At iCore, we love being accessible to your customers when and where they want. Seamless and easy, the way CX should be. Discover why top brands trust iCore for their omni-channel support. Smile with iCore. Learn more at iCore.com.
If you think about all that content, whether that content is searchable text, or it's an image, or it's a product data sheet, or videos of how to use or how to optimize a certain product, the the ability to capture all of that requires the data to be more structured than most systems and processes and algorithms are capable of ingesting. So by labeling and annotating unstructured data, an AI algorithm or a search utility or a product sheet will be far more usable once you've annotated or labeled that content to be more relevant and contextual to the goal of its use. Does that make sense?
Yes, Joe, totally makes sense. Let's take that one level deeper now. Let's get into the definitions of labeling and annotation. What are they actually?
Well, if let's start with labeling. So as you have a collection of content or unstructured data, a label is a simple label. It is telling a system what an image or a video or text is. Imagine an image of a cat. The label is CAT, cat. So you've labeled that. Now, anytime once a model, and in many cases that could be an algorithm, it could be in today's world the use of AI and machine learning to understand what an image is portraying. And so once it's labeled, and labeled likely thousands of times, then that algorithm will fully understand that that picture or image is of a cat. When you get into annotation, that's now providing more context. Imagine levels of detail regarding a sentiment or a use or a direction. So you're now adding additional layers of context into the labels by annotating that unstructured data, so it can be utilized by artificial intelligence or AI algorithms to benefit the business.
So it's actually a form of giving unstructured data some structure by doing labeling and doing annotation. Is that right?
Absolutely, and that sort of fits overall in that life cycle of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So in the beginning, you're simply collecting the data, ingesting it into whatever system's going to utilize it. You may be categorizing or transforming that data such that it's organized a little better, and then you're going to train that model. And the labeling and annotation is critical in training the AI such that its ultimate result, or its ability to predict something or do something, is more structured and has better context to what your data is telling it to do. Then ultimately, after it's labeled and annotated, you want to run that model multiple times to validate that, in fact, its output is what you expect it to be, or what the data is telling it to do. And then you're going to monitor that over time, because quite honestly, in our world, those models are changing all of the time. So you're always adding incremental new customer data or context or different types of data to make that AI model more robust.
Joe, my next question is kind of a two-part question. My mind is spinning. I can think of so many industries where this is important. So maybe you can speak to particular industries where it's critically important, and also why. Why is it critically important in some industries?
Oh goodness, what industry can you read about today that isn't investing in AI? I would say, let's look at social media, goodness, healthcare, retail, fintech, all the way through, automotive and consumer products. If we dive a little deeper, in social media, their AI is helping with, writing assistance to be able to portray a topic or a product in the best light. It's helping rank content. It's doing image editing. So think of all of the social media tools that allow you to use multiple images to drive a specific relevance of that content. It's the ability to rank it based on your preferences and what you've visited before. If I think about healthcare, it's in telemedicine, it's in drug development, it's in your and my ability to search and diagnose a medical problem or understand drug interactions. Those are all using AI models that must rely on data that's well annotated and labeled for its specific context. If you think about the retail industry, every retailer is driving that omni-channel experience, whether you're purchasing a product online or you're visiting a brick and mortar store, having that consistent experience across those, having product images that represent the product. Can you use an AI driven app on your phone to see how that article of clothing or your eyeglasses are going to look on your body style or with the shape of your face? And those algorithms are learning all the time of what do people who have a similar shaped face to yourself, what are their favorite glasses, and how can you suggest products that might be acceptable or valued by the customer. If you think about the automotive industry and autonomous vehicles, if you think about industrial applications for organizations, optimizing manufacturing or optimizing and predicting when repairs are required, it is in every industry. It's in streaming. It's in your new economy or sort of digitally native industries, devices and hardware, travel, consumer products. Gaming today is full of artificial intelligence and reams of data that are help driving the acceptance of those brands.
You've painted a very clear picture, Joe. The use cases are endless. So thank you for that. I want to know, inside an organization, who cares about annotation and labeling? Who's thinking about this in an organization?
Well, today, we do a search of any brand you can think of, and I would argue in one of their top 5 investments that they're listing in their public documents or on their websites or how their chief marketing officer is representing the organization or their chief digital officer is representing their organization. that AI is a very significant investment on behalf of many of these brands. And if you're being tasked with harnessing the capability and the value of artificial intelligence to benefit the business, then you care about how that your vast amounts of both private data and public data are being utilized to train that AI model to be better than your competitors, to be above the expected line from a brand standpoint. And the creating context to that data is what annotation and labeling is all about.
Got it. What about scalability? How does a brand do this at scale?
Goodness, I would argue today that most organizations are partnering with other companies to help them. The sheer volume of data and the limited resources within someone's organization to do this at scale with speed and at a level of quality that's going to train that AI. Most are driven to partner with other organizations that could be, solution providers, software tools, organizations like BPOs or niche companies that provide annotation and labeling services. In addition, I would say that they're also augmenting things maybe that aren't part of their core competence as an organization or a brand, and relying on organizations that might do that for a living to help them
Sure.
through it with that scale and speed.
Sure. Now you mentioned the sheer volume of data. What about different data types? I've got to believe there's got to be a lot to understand around the data types.
Absolutely. If you think through maybe 4 primary data types, organizations are going to have data that is text-based. It could be numerical. It could be alphanumeric in nature that require context. They're going to have images. They're going to have audio files. They're going to have video capabilities. And all of those, the more you move from numeric to alphanumeric to image, to audio, to video, the more unstructured that data becomes, and the higher the requirement will be to augment that with labeling and annotation to give it context for the AI model itself.
Now, Joe, anytime we're talking about access to data, you've got to be thinking and talking about security and privacy. So how do brands deal with security and privacy around accessing their data?
It's certainly in organizations that I talk to around, especially whether it even generally from an AI perspective, one of their first concerns and one of their first decision criteria is going to be around the standards in which you're going to manage and provide security around their data and their customers' data. And there are significant technologies and processes to protect both consumer and proprietary data in categorizing it with labels and annotating that data. And to me, it will continue to be one of the primary decision makers on how you're going to build your AI models and who you're going to partner with.
Okay. So as we begin to wrap, I want to ask you this next question, and I want to kind of preface my question, because you said earlier, Joe, fundamentally, annotation and labeling is about developing your AI. And any brand that is focused on developing their AI, it's so that they can be competitive in the marketplace, because every brand is working on that. You also said that the volumes are very big, and in many cases, brands are partnering with partners. So my question is, what's the role of the BPO in AI development, and what should brands be looking for in a BPO partner for annotation and labeling?
Well, if you think about, starting with the need and the vast amounts of data and the number of types of data that could be used by computer vision or natural language processing or audio processing, and how you might progress through that, finding organizations that understand how to annotate and label, whether that's using bounding box or semantic annotation or video annotation or cuboids, having organizations with a depth of knowledge of what needs to occur and finding the right talent to deliver that is critical. Why a BPO can be a very valuable partner is all the supporting mechanisms for driving high quality annotation and labeling at scale. How do you identify talent? How do you hire that talent? How do you train those individuals on specific systems and processes? How do you have a quality and monitoring process that will ensure that gets better over time with each iteration? How do you provide feedback and coaching to drive new goals? How do you introduce new processes to enhance that? Those are all core competencies of a BPO organization that can deliver to you and your organization scale, quality, and security that meets an organization's overall needs for building out their AI strategy.
Yeah. Well said. Well said, Joe. So, Joe, closing thought in the context of, back to the beginning of our conversation, in the context of content management, what is your closing thought on how brands should be thinking about data annotation and labeling?
As a brand, if you look at your organization and have a good understanding of what you want to accomplish with AI, and a good understanding of the depth and breadth of your organization, where will you provide a competitive difference in doing that work, the annotation and labeling, the development of the AI, the deployment of the AI, the ongoing training of it, and identify where the gaps are. And if those gaps are in meeting the speed or the scale or the different data types or managing its security at a level of accuracy and consistency that the organization's required, that's when I would look to partner with a trustworthy organization. And it can change over time. You will develop new expertise and pull certain things internally and push other things out as your AI models get more and more complex.
Well, thank you for that, Joe. Before we wrap it, I'm going to ask you the final question, and this is our fun question, Joe. We have a tradition here on the Digitally Irresistible podcast. We like to know, Joe, when you're not working, what do you like to do for fun?
Oh, goodness. I would say if you can cook it outside, I'm in. I love to grill. I've got a smoker and have smoked everything from, every protein you can imagine to mac and cheese. I love to cook in the pizza oven, whether that's pizza or it's breads. So if something can be done outdoors in the kitchen, I'm all over it. Outside of that, I love to play a little golf, try to stay in shape, and cherish friends and family, I would say.
All good. I'm 100% agreement with all of them. So thank you for sharing that, Joe. That's great. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast. Where can people connect with you online, Joe, if someone wants to connect with you?
I certainly on LinkedIn is probably the best spot, and we can provide everybody a link to that as well as direct back to the organization. So
Exactly. Those that are watching the video, Joe, are seeing that flash on the screen. It's in our show notes. So whether you're watching or listening, Joe's LinkedIn link is going to be in the show notes. And well, Joe, I just want to thank you for joining us on this episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast. I really enjoy learning about something about content management and the role of data annotation and labeling. And as you said, and how you educated us today on now, every brand is focused on developing their AI. And of course, annotation and labeling plays a big role in that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Joe.
Thank you, Bernie. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Digitally Irresistible podcast, where we cover the optimization of digital technologies and irresistible people, delivering a great employee and customer experience that has a measurable impact on the business. Brought to you by iCore. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss future episodes.